Hi everyone, it's Łukasz Wybranski from Datonic, and today in the part 2 of the tutorial I will tell you about passing parameters. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the code, which you can also see on our GitHub, which is github.com/datonic/Databricks Asset Bundles tutorial. Okay. There will be 3 levels of variables or parameters. First, we have variables from the Databricks configuration file, which usually is called Databricks YAML or bundle YAML. And here we need to differentiate the naming because here in Databricks YAML, we're going to call it as a variable. And later in job and in task, we're going to call it parameters, right? So here here variables, and later we call it parameters in jobs and tasks. I'll show you how to actually implement it. So first thing we need to do, if you want a global variable, which we usually will be an environment called like dev, test, prod, we need to define them first here. Variables, we need to name it. We can give description and type. Okay, and later here we need to, for each target, which is usually again will be development, test, or prod, we need to define this variable. Okay. Okay, I call it global variable in that case. Okay, how to use it later? We go here, we defined a place called parameters. And we give it value. We need to like $, open brackets, var name, the same name as we have in the configuration file here. Okay. If we don't do this, it won't get. So if we don't do this part, it won't be seen by this file and we won't be able to use it later. So this part is very important. We can actually do the same in base parameters, so define it in other place, but I prefer to do it here in parameters. Okay. Now let's do local parameter, local for this file. So all of tasks in that file, in that job, will be able to access that parameter. Local parameter. Okay. And last level are task specific parameters. You do like base parameter. And we're gonna be able to actually access that. All right. We have everything ready. So now let's go to write Python code. How can we actually get these parameters later in Python file or SQL file? Okay. We're going to run it as Databricks notebook source, which again, as I explained in the previous tutorial, allows us to run them with standard job compute, which is very convenient because notebook files are like Jupyter notebooks are quite hard for doing the code review because it adds a lot of custom characters and a lot of things you don't want to see during code review, and also makes it more difficult for version control. That's why we do this trick that allows Databricks to treat Python and SQL files as notebooks. To access these parameters, we need to use dbutils utility. So it goes like this. Okay, first we define them, same name as in the job. and parameter. All right. We do this, and we need to get them as well. So local and respectively, we need to give the same names. Okay. I'm gonna create a new cell. Can do like this, command, and we're gonna print these parameters. And that's pretty much it for Python. Now let's go to the SQL. In SQL, we do the same. So we define it as Databricks notebook source so we can run it with notebook engine. And we need to divide it with commands, of course. Because in SQL, we only get the first, or actually the last result. So we need to like this. Okay, everything's ready. So let's now, yeah, everything looks good. Let's run this and see if it's all working properly. Let's do that. So Databricks bundle, validate first. Okay, validation went through. Let's deploy. And let's actually run this. Okay, I ruined a bit because it takes about 90 seconds to get finished. It's just finished here. Let's click on the run and let's see how it looks for Python and for SQL. Awesome. As we can see, we defined it properly. It got the parameters, local parameter, global variable from the Databricks YAM file, and parameter from the task. Awesome. It worked really well for Python. Let's see how it went for SQL. This one, task level parameter went through, global variable as well, and local parameter from task is also working. So we got it covered. That's essentially it. Again, if you want to see the code, you can go to our GitHub. And if you have any questions, just ask them in the chat or write me on LinkedIn. Thank you.